The very best footballers perform at the highest level year in and year out. But for these players, they blew up for only a short time, took the world by storm, and then disappeared into thin air forever. What really happened to these one-hit wonders in EPL history? Not many people remember this, but once upon a time, Ipswich Town finished 5th in the Premier League, all thanks to one man who had also single-handedly helped the team to promotion from the Championship a season earlier. That man was Marcus Stewart. He scored 19 goals for Ipswich during the 2001 season, and finished as runner-up in the Golden Boot, behind Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Everyone was going crazy about Stewart and Ipswich, but it turns out that both the player and the club were one-season wonders because they both fell to pieces. The team got relegated the following season. For Stewart, he never rediscovered his form and ended up falling off the radar, which was quite tragic, but not as disappointing as this next player. After scoring 24 goals for Freiburg in the 2010-11 season, he began to appear on scouts' radar. Midway through the following season, Newcastle made their move and secured the Senegalese services for £9.3 million. The Magpies, led by the prolific Demba Ba, were looking to secure a top 4 finish. Once Cisse arrived, he became the main man, scoring 13 goals in 14 games in the second half of the season, including that crazy wonder strike against Chelsea, which we all remember. But that was it. We didn't really get to see the very best of Cisse over the course of the next 4 years, as he gradually faded into oblivion. Well, except for the 2014 and 15 season, where he hit double figures for goals, but there's no denying that the Senegalese failed to live up to the expectations he set for himself with a brilliant start to life in the Premier League. Cisse would then join Shandong Luneng in the Chinese Super League in 2016 before moving to Turkey. Now 38 years old, Cisse has been a free agent since November 2023. But this next footballer actually took the term one-season wonder to a whole new level. Back in 2008, Robinho arrived in Manchester City from Real Madrid and immediately made history, thanks to a then British record fee of £32.5 million, as Manchester City embarked on a spending spree after the Abu Dhabi takeover. At first, Robinho seemed to be worth every penny. He was taking on defenders for fun and scoring goals. 14 goals in 31 matches was enough to see the Brazilian finish as City's top goal scorer, but injuries and poor form saw Robinho fall down the pecking order and head back to his homeland on loan at Santos. Eventually, the Brazilian was sold permanently to AC Milan. Talent-wise, Robinho was one of the best we had ever seen, but his poor work rate and lack of tactical discipline, coupled with unfortunate injuries, meant that he never lived up to the expectation. But it was a little different for this other guy. Andy Johnson spent 9 years in the English Premier League, but almost half of his goals came during the 2004 and 5 campaign alone. Leading the line for Crystal Palace, the striker netted 21 times to finish second, only behind Thierry Henry for the Golden Boot. Well, half of those goals were penalties, but who cares? Unfortunately, Johnson's efforts were not enough to save the Eagles from relegation as they finished 18th, just 1 point shy of safety. To be fair, Johnson scored 11 goals for Everton when he joined them ahead of the 2006 and 7 campaign. And although his goal-scoring touch deserted him, he's probably not the worst player on our list. Now let's talk about someone who was first exciting, but later became frustrating to watch. After an underwhelming 7 goals in 50 games across 2 seasons for Portsmouth, the Zimbabwean flipped the switch and went on a goal-scoring rampage the following season, as he scored 12 times in 23 appearances. At that point, Manchester City couldn't hold back and would immediately sign the striker for a fee of £3.78 million in February 2008. And guess who scored on his debut against Manchester United? Benjani's debut couldn't have been more poetic, but it also couldn't have been more tragic afterward because Benjani never took off at Manchester City. And once Roberto Mancini arrived and the Abu Dhabi takeover was complete, it was the end of the road for Benjani, who became a journeyman after. To be fair, Benjani had 2 great seasons when he played for Auxerre in the Liga in the early 2000s. But as far as English football is concerned, he will always be seen as a one-hit wonder, just like this next player. Back in 2001, when Johansson famously towered over Arsenal Silvino and Igor Stepanovs to head home his 13th goal of the season, the Finnish forward must have thought that the Premier League was overrated because he was scoring freely. Newly promoted Charlton were 8th in the table, and Johansson was on fire. After an insane 14-goal first season with the club, Johansson would only score a mere 17 goals in total over the next 5 years, as his spell in English football sadly came to an end. Up next is a legendary Spaniard. After joining Swansea for £2 million on the back of a 15-goal season with Rayo Vallecano, Michu exploded upon his arrival at the Premier League in the summer of 2012. Michu scored 2 goals on his debut and would go on to score 22 goals in all competitions at the end of the season. His 18 league goals earned Michu a call-up to the Spanish national team, who were world champions at the time, but that was as good as it got. Plagued by injuries, Michu only scored 2 league goals the following season and had to be sent on loan to Napoli, but his fortunes didn't change. Michu would then spend some time in the lower divisions before announcing his retirement in July 2017 at the age of 31. To be brutally honest, I had never seen anyone shoot up so quickly and then follow that up with a rapid decline like Michu. Anyway, no one will forget that magical 2012 and 13 season where Swansea finished 9th and won the League Cup. And one thing is for sure, Swansea fans will never forget Michu. Wigan fans thought they struck gold when they came across Zaki. Well, to be fair, they did strike gold, but just for one season, in the 2008 and 2009 season. Signed on a season-long loan from Egyptian side El Zamalek, Zaki had a crazy start to life in England, scoring 5 goals in his first 4 matches and reaching double figures for goals in the Premier League. Wigan chairman Dave Whalen likened Zaki to Alan Shearer, which was a terrible thing to do because after that, the goals dried up. Zaki then redefined unprofessionalism with frequent late returns from international duty. Zaki would go on to spend a couple of unsuccessful months on loan at Hull City before returning to the Egyptian league, never to be heard of again. Roque Santa Cruz spent a total of 8 years at Bayern Munich, and during those years, we never really saw him as a prolific goal scorer. The most goals he had scored in an entire Bundesliga season was only 5 goals, but Blackburn must have seen something in the Paraguayan, seeing the fanfare that followed when he moved to the EPL in 2007. Santa Cruz immediately repaid the faith of the club as Mark Hughes built the team around him. Santa Cruz scored 19 league goals and 23 goals in all competitions, helping Blackburn to a 7th place finish at the end of the season. But Santa Cruz struggled after, scoring only 4 league goals. He was accused of not giving his best and being distracted by Manchester City. City finally got Cruz the following season, but he was a huge flop at the Etihad. Santa Cruz would become a journeyman across Europe afterward until his return to Paraguay in 2016. Talking about being a journeyman, we saw something similar with this next player. We could also talk about the Englishman who, after a successful season at Walsall, earned a move to the English First Division to join Bolton Wanderers for £400,000 in July 2000. It was a masterstroke as Ricketts would go on to score 24 goals for Bolton. Ricketts' goals helped Bolton to secure qualification to the Premier League through playoff. Ricketts continued to be prolific in front of goal in his first season in the Premier League, hitting 15 goals by February. His form led to his call-up for England, and that was it. Ricketts failed to impress for the rest of the season, and for the rest of his career. A £3.5 million move to Middlesbrough, a switch to Leeds United the following year, and loans to Stoke, Cardiff, and Burnley all ended with disappointment before Ricketts saw out his career in the Division 1. The Premier League has seen dozens of these kinds of players, but who shocked you the most, and who do you consider to be the greatest of them all?